in a nutshell, I have a very disagreeable neighbour who has made it his life mission to make my life as difficult as possible whilst living in the property that I do. And so, yeah, and so numerous phone calls to the police, and then an assault led to being in touch with victim care. It's predominantly it's to do with we live in bungalows, and we have very narrow driveways that split between our bungalows, and a lot of the problems were around parking. Who should be able to park where on the driveway? Should I even be allowed to use my driveway? And it was constantly he was phoning the police to say that I damaged his vehicle, even though I wasn't even there half the time. And it was just lots of little harassment. It's just accused me of damaging his vehicle when I first moved in. Because I didn't want any of this nastiness, I stupidly paid for the repair, and that kind of then set him off on his sort of his path. And it's just, and since then I think he now feels that he can get me to pay for lots of things, and whereas I've because I've said no, that's not happening, learnt my lesson, go through my insurance. He's kind of ratcheted it up and up and up to the point where it's just like bad mouthing me to my friends when they came round. So I told my friends to stop coming round. It just lots of little things that just built up and built up and built up over time to this big kind of crescendo as it was. At the time, it was scary. I was trapped in my car. He was at my driver's door, and he got his hands around my throat, threatening to kill me. It's just sort of, and all because I'd parked an inch over the drive. It's kind of so at the time it was scary, and when I got in the house, I was physically shaking. It's sort of, but again, and the first thing I did was phone a friend, who instantly told me I need to phone the police. So, which is what I did, and then it kind of went from there.
How are you feeling in the weeks and the months after the assault?
I am still very nervous. I still get quite shaky if he's out and about. I always have my phone on and on record, just in case, because I can't. He's very volatile, so you never quite know, what's going to happen. Is he just going to ignore me, or is he going to be in my face? So it's kind of, as I pull into the street, it's sort of like I've become hyper vigilant. I'm looking around, I'm checking where is he. It's sort of like, where am I parking? It's just, and I can't get in my home quick enough. It's just, it's not ideal, but it's just, The police, they suggested, when I had my first encounter with my neighbour, he got his air rifle on the fence between our properties and was shooting across my garden, and they told me to contact Victim Care then. So that's when I first was introduced to Jane, and then it kind of all went quiet for a little while, and then it kicked off again big time last year, and then Jane got really involved last year, but was always kind of at the end of the phone in between if there was anything kicking off. A lot of confidence, and a lot of it's not on me, it's on everybody else to, I am the victim in this problem. It's for others to try and fix the problem, and it's actually given me a voice, and has enabled me to to now use my voice to say, this is not acceptable, this is not on.
Would you say that is the core way that the support has helped you, is giving you this confidence?
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. And just knowing that, you know, if any time it gets too much with my neighbour, Jane's at the end of the phone, she's at the end of an email. Yeah, it's sort of like coffees help as well. But you know, yeah, just knowing that she's there, you know, it's just kind of, you know, it's almost like you've got backup. But yeah.
So with regard to this case, it came to my notice in, I think it was 2022. Just decided that, didn't we?
Yeah,
Remember, it's been a while. But as a result of what was going on, nobody seemed to be taking any notice. So we called a community trigger, Antisocial Behaviour case review, and it was at that meeting really that things started to happen. It was mainly the housing association weren't really too bothered, but I think even though I would never know how Nikki's feeling, I like to think that I can say, how would I feel if I was having to tolerate that every day? You know, not wanting to come home, checking my camera to see if it's safe to come home, and then having, you know, with the best will in the world, you're not the quickest, are you? But you try desperately, you know, to actually get into his home quickly. When you first moved in there, I remember him telling me that it was a bungalow, it was going to be his palace, it was going to be his safe refuge, and that's all been taken away from him now. But I'm still involved, things are still going on, and there's going to be a mini exercise going over to housing next week. Getting a good result from our victims of crime, you know, just getting, you know, by the time they come to us, especially antisocial behaviour, they've probably dealt with 30, 40, 50 incidents and ignored it and then thought, do you know what, I need some help. And it's only when they reach out to help that you know they've tolerated so much that they now need a little bit more help. And that's when, you know, they should be taken seriously. We should be advocating for them, because by this time their confidence is completely knocked and they don't feel that anybody is ever going to believe them. So just advocating and believing them is the most important.